Something to lean on. Phil, can you get the rods, please?
Tired of the same old monster movie tropes? Looking for the kind of fright that truly chills you to the bone? Then get ready to explore the best-kept secrets in this genre. Call this a monster movie marathon unlike any other because we're going to show you 15 unbelievably good horror films you've probably never heard of. Not making any promises, but I'll do my best to not spoil the ending. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like the content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Grabbers, 2012. Grabbers was a big hit at the Sundance Film Festival. The story introduces us to Garda O'Shea, a police officer that gets paired with, by the book, Garda Lisa Nolan. Oh, and by the way, Garda is an alcoholic. This detail is important for the plot, trust me. So, now Nolan is temporarily assigned to the island, hoping to make a good impression on her superiors. Their partnership is initially strained due to their contrasting personalities, but they must quickly put aside their differences when they find mutilated whale corpses and realize that something is seriously wrong. Grabbers begins to attack the island's residents, and the local marine ecologist, Dr. Smith, finds out that the creatures cannot tolerate high blood alcohol levels. You know what this means? To stay safe, you must stay drunk. Boy, do I wish to be in this movie. The film's central premise, that the aliens are repelled by a high blood alcohol content, was conceived by writer Kevin Lehane. He was inspired by a news report about a village in Ireland being terrorized by swarms of bees, and humorously mused that the best defense against bees might be to get drunk. Anyway, the Islanders organize a massive drinking session at the local pub to keep everyone safe. What follows is a hilarious adventure as the Islanders try to fend off the grabbers while increasingly intoxicated. But were they successful? For that, you've had to watch the movie. Nightbreed, 1990. Nightbreed is written and directed by Clive Barker based on his 1988 novella, Cabal. As for the plot, it's pretty similar to what we've had in the book. Aaron Boone is a troubled young man plagued by nightmares of a place called Midian, a sanctuary for monsters. Boone's psychiatrist, Dr. Philip Decker, manipulates him into believing he is responsible for a series of brutal murders. Decker, who is the actual killer, uses Boone as a scapegoat to cover his own crimes. That's very Hannibal Lecter of him. Horror director David Cronenberg plays the villain Dr. Decker, a serial killer. Cronenberg was chosen for the role because Barker thought he had a very unsettling presence. Boone's journey to Midian begins after a fellow patient at the hospital, Narcissus, reveals its location. Boone escapes to the cemetery of Midian, where he encounters the Nightbreed, a community of outcasts hiding from the human world. Initially, the Nightbreed are wary of Boone, but they soon recognize him as one of their own after he is bitten by one of the creatures and resurrected. The film's central conflict arises when Decker, along with the police and a group of vigilantes, finds Midian and launches an assault on the Nightbreed. Boone, now fully integrated into the community, must defend his new family and confront Decker to stop the massacre. The Nightbreed themselves are portrayed as misunderstood beings seeking refuge from a world that fears and persecutes them. However, just as the Nightbreed faced prejudice and misunderstanding in the film, Clive Barker's creative vision for Nightbreed faced similar challenges behind the scenes. The film studio Morgan Creek heavily interfered with Barker's vision, cutting the film significantly and changing its ending. This led to significant critical disappointment at the time. Years later, a director's cut of Nightbreed was released, restoring about 40 minutes of footage and better realizing Barker's original intent. This version is now much more critically acclaimed. Cub, 2014. Check this one out. It's a great European movie. It was originally titled Whelp. Now, that's a weird name for a movie. Anyway, speaking of the plot, Sam is a 12-year-old Cub Scout who is often bullied by his peers and even by one of his Cub leaders, Peter. Sam is an imaginative and sensitive boy, but he is haunted by a troubled past and struggling to fit in. His scout troop goes on a camping trip in the dense forests of the Ardennes, and as the scouts set up camp, the leaders, including the more sympathetic Chris and the camp cook, Jasmine, try to keep the boys entertained with tales of mythical werewolves named Kai, said to haunt the woods. Sam becomes convinced that the stories are real. His fears are soon validated when he encounters a feral boy who he believes to be Kai. Unbeknownst to the scouts, the forest is home to a psychopathic poacher and his feral son who have set up a series of deadly traps throughout the woods. The poacher delights in the idea of unsuspecting campers falling into his traps, and the scouts soon find themselves in a fight for survival. As the line between myth and reality blurs, Sam's imagination becomes both his greatest strength and his biggest vulnerability. Detailed box office information for Cub is limited, indicating a modest release primarily in European markets. Despite this, it has been well received in horror film circles and has gained recognition through various film festivals. Ginger Snaps, 2000. Ginger Snaps is a feminist take on the werewolf genre. The werewolf transformation is a metaphor for the changes and challenges of puberty, particularly for young women dealing with issues of menstruation, sexuality, and identity. Coming directly to the plot, in the suburban town of Bailey Downs, a series of brutal dog killings have the community on edge. Bridget and Ginger are outcasts at their high school, and they share a deep bond and a morbid pact to either escape their mundane lives or die together by the age of 16. Their lives take a dramatic turn when Ginger experiences her first period on the night of a full moon and is ambushed by a mysterious thing. This attack marks the beginning of Ginger's transformation into a werewolf. And if you think this movie is a little off-putting, then that's because it's from an independent Canadian production. Ginger undergoes both physical and behavioral changes. She becomes more aggressive, her wounds heal unnaturally fast, and she starts to develop animalistic traits such as a tail and excessive hair growth. Bridget, the more reserved and introspective sister, becomes increasingly concerned and desperate to find a cure for Ginger's condition. She seeks help from Sam, a local drug dealer who has some knowledge of the supernatural. So were the two of them able to find a way to reverse the transformation before Ginger's next full moon, when she would become a full-fledged werewolf? To know that, you gotta check out Ginger Snaps, available on Amazon Prime Video. Spring. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, the directors of Spring, frequently act, direct, and write their films, and their shared experience shapes their work. In this movie, Evan is a young American whose life is in turmoil following the death of his mom. Seeking a fresh start, he impulsively travels to Italy. In the picturesque coastal town of Polignano a Mare, he meets Louise, a captivating and enigmatic woman. Their chemistry is immediate and they quickly form a deep connection. However, Louise harbors a dark secret. She is an ancient being who undergoes a regenerative process every 20 years, which involves incorporating genetic material from a male partner. This process allows her to remain youthful, but comes with horrifying transformations where her body temporarily morphs into various evolutionary forms. As you can see, Spring focuses more on the characters and their emotional journeys than jump scares or gore. The horror is woven into the fabric of their relationship. As Evan and Louise's relationship deepens, Evan learns about her true nature. Despite the initial shock, he is determined to stay with her. Louise reveals that she can choose to stop her regenerative cycle and live a normal human life if she falls in love. As the hormone oxytocin can interfere with her transformation, this revelation adds a layer of urgency to their romance. Well, whatever works for them, I guess. Spring had a limited theatrical release and grossed approximately $49,970. While it didn't make a significant impact at the box office, it received positive critical reviews and has been appreciated for its originality and emotional depth. The Faculty, 1998. The Faculty has a cast of up-and-coming actors who would later become well-known, including Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster, and Clea Duvall. Robert Rodriguez, known for his fast-paced, action-oriented style, directed the film, giving it a distinct look and feel that is different from other teen horror films of the late 90s. It is set in Harrington High School in Ohio, where strange things begin to happen. The school's principal, Valerie Drake, got beat up by the football coach, Joe Willis, and the drama teacher, Mrs. Olson. Quite a weird start to the movie. This sets the tone for the events that follow. Casey Connor is a shy and bullied student who works as the school newspaper's photographer. One day he finds a peculiar creature on the football field, which he takes to his science teacher, Mr. Furlong. Mr. Furlong identifies it as a new species of cephalopod-like parasite. As the story progresses, Casey and his friends realize that the faculty members are being controlled by these alien parasites. The group bands together to uncover the truth and stop the alien invasion. They notice that the parasites need water to survive and that the queen parasite must be killed to stop the infection. The faculty also pays homage to classic science fiction and horror films, drawing inspiration from movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Thing. The Ritual, 2018. Now time for a British movie. In it, The Ritual is based on a novel by Adam Neville. The film maintains a similar creepy and suspenseful atmosphere to the book, since it was primarily shot in the forests of Romania, which stand in for the Swedish wilderness where the story is set. A group of university friends, Luke, Phil, Dom, Hutch, and Rob reunite at a pub to discuss their next holiday. Rob suggests a hiking trip in Sweden, but the idea is dismissed. Later that night, Luke and Rob go to a liquor store where a robbery occurs. Luke hides while Rob is killed by the robbers. 6 months later, the remaining 4 friends decide to honor Rob's memory by going on the hiking trip he had suggested. As they trek through the Kungsleden in northern Sweden, Dom injures his knee, prompting the group to take a shortcut through the forest. Very similar to the book, the decision leads them into a dark and foreboding environment filled with strange symbols. The group soon comes across a gutted and hanged elk, as well as an abandoned cabin containing artifacts, including a human-like effigy made of twigs and antlers. That night, they experience nightmares and wake up to find themselves marked with strange wounds. As they try to find their way out of the forest, they realize they are being stalked by a monstrous entity rooted in Norse mythology. The monster itself, revealed to be a Jotun, is a deity from Norse mythology. In the end, Luke has to face Jotun alone, and he does a damn good job at it. How does he do it then? Watch The Ritual and see for yourself. You won't regret it. The Ritual was later acquired by Netflix for international distribution, significantly expanding its audience. Now you know where to watch it. Crawl, 2019. This is mainly a disaster horror film, but it deserves a spot on this list. It might actually remind you of another movie called Blackwater. You'll soon understand why. Let's understand the story first. Haley Keller, a competitive swimmer at the University of Florida, receives a call from her sister Beth about a hurricane. Concerned for their estranged father, Dave, Haley decides to check in on him despite evacuation orders. She first visits his condo but finds it empty, leading her to their old family home in Coral Lake, Florida. Upon arriving at the house, Haley finds her father unconscious in the crawl space, injured and unable to move. As she attempts to help him, they realize they are not alone. The crawl space is infested with large, aggressive alligators that have been washed in by the floodwaters. Trapped and with the water level rising rapidly, Haley and Dave must use their wits and survival skills to escape the deadly predators. While CGI was used for some of the scenes, many of the alligators in the film were real. Well, that's scary. Now you get why I compared it to Blackwater. If you haven't watched it, then go do that after this video ends. Director Alexander Aja, known for his work on films like The Hills Have Eyes and Piranha 3D, brings in his expertise to Crawl, delivering a tightly paced and thrilling experience. The film's runtime of 87 minutes ensures that the action remains relentless, with a few moments of respite for the characters or the audience. It was a surprise hit, and it garnered strong reviews for its suspense. The word of mouth really helped with the publicity. Sea Fever 2019. If you're shocked to see that an Irish movie made the list, but trust me, it's worth it, I'd really love the story, so let me tell you all about it. Siobhan, a marine biology student, joins the crew of the fishing trawler Niamsine O'Weir for her research on sea wildlife. As they set off, they're warned by the Coast Guard about an exclusion zone, but Gerard, desperate for a good catch, decides to enter it anyway. While in the exclusion zone, the boat becomes entangled with a mysterious bioluminescent organism. Siobhan, equipped with diving gear, realizes that the organism is a massive tentacled creature that has latched onto the hull. The crew initially believes it to be a giant squid, but soon realizes it is something far more dangerous. The organism releases a blue-green slime that contains parasitic larvae, which begin to infect the crew. The first sign of trouble comes when a crew member cut his hand on a rope contaminated with the slime. He soon exhibits strange behavior and eventually succumbs to the parasites, which cause his eyes to burst and release more larvae. The crew realizes that their water supply has been contaminated and they must find a way to sterilize the boat to prevent further infection. As the situation worsens, tensions rise among the crew. Siobhan, using her scientific knowledge, theorizes that intense UV light might kill the parasites. They attempt to use UV lights to sterilize the water, but when that fails, they resort to electrocuting the boat using the ship's arc welder. This drastic measure successfully kills the parasites, but not before several crew members are lost. Gonna stop right here, not to spoil it for you. Splinter 2008. Splinter is a low-budget independent horror film, but what it lacks in budget, it makes up for in creativity and suspense. So here, a young couple, Seth Belzer and Polly Watt, are on a romantic camping trip in the forests of Oklahoma. Their plans are abruptly interrupted when they are carjacked by an escaped convict, Dennis Farrell, and his drug-addicted girlfriend, Lacey Belisle. As they drive, they run over a strange Splinter-infected animal, causing a flat tire. Seeking help, the group arrives at a seemingly abandoned gas station. Inside, they see the pump attendant who has been infected by the Splinter parasite. This parasite transforms its hosts into grotesque, zombie-like things. Lacey is the first to fall victim, and her reanimated corpse attacks the others. The survivors quickly realize that the parasite can control severed body parts, making even dismembered limbs dangerous. They understand that the parasite hunts based on temperature, heading for the warmest thing it can find. This leads to a desperate plan. Seth lowers his body temperature with ice packs to sneak past it and retrieve help from a nearby police car. Meanwhile, Polly and Dennis distract the parasite with fireworks. One of the film's standout moments is the amputation scene, where Seth and Polly are forced to amputate Dennis's infected arm to prevent the parasite from spreading. Even with a tiny budget, they did a solid job. Totally worth your attention, I'd say. Silver Bullet 1985. Silver Bullet is based on a Stephen King novella, Cycle of the Werewolf. It's not one of the bigger King adaptations, but it has a cult fanbase. Here's how it goes. In the fictional town of Tarker's Mills, Maine, a series of brutal murders begin to terrorize the community. The story is narrated by Jane Coslow, who recounts the events from her childhood. Her younger brother, Marty Coslow, is a paraplegic boy who uses a motorized wheelchair. Despite his disability, Marty is adventurous and resourceful, often getting into mischief with his friends. The town is thrown into chaos when a railroad worker, Arnie Westrom, is decapitated by an unseen attacker. This is followed by the murder of a pregnant woman, Stella Randolph, and an abusive father, Milt Sturmfuller. The killings escalate, and the townspeople form a vigilante group to hunt down the supposed maniac responsible for the deaths. However, their efforts are in vain as more people fall victim to the mysterious killer. Marty becomes convinced that the murders are the work of a werewolf. His suspicions are confirmed when he encounters the attacker while setting up fireworks on the bridge. Marty manages to injure the werewolf by shooting a rocket into its eye, allowing him to escape. He enlists the help of his sister Jane to find someone in town with a newly injured or missing eye. Shout out to the special effects provided by the legendary Carlo Rambaldi, who was known for his work on E.T. and Alien. The werewolf design was a talking point. Their investigation leads them to Reverend Lester Lowe, who they discover is the werewolf. Reverend Lowe, tormented by his dual nature, has been trying to control his transformations but has failed. Marty and Jane, unable to convince any adults of the truth, turn to their uncle Red for help. Red is initially skeptical but eventually believes them and helps them prepare for the next full moon. I'm gonna stop right here before I spoil the climax, so go ahead and check out this movie. Needless to say, any movie associated with Stephen King is a great watch. Terror Vision, 1986. Looking for a movie with over-the-top performances, quirky humor, and colorful aesthetic? I've got you covered. Now, in Terror Vision, the story revolves around the Putterman family who installs a new satellite dish at their suburban home. The family includes the parents, Stanley and Raquel, their teenage daughter Susie, their young son Sherman, and the survivalist grandfather. The satellite dish inadvertently picks up a signal from an alien planet, Pluton, where a garbage disposal unit has malfunctioned, sending a monster known as the Hungry Beast to Earth. Now, this Hungry Beast materializes to the family's television set. Sherman is the first to encounter the Hungry Beast, but his warnings are dismissed by his parents, who are preoccupied with their swinger lifestyle. As the Hungry Beast begins to wreak havoc, consuming various members of the household and their guests, Sherman and his grandfather try to find a way to stop it. The film's humor is derived from its over-the-top characters and absurd situations. The Putterman family is portrayed as a caricature of 1980s suburban excess, with their garish home decor and eccentric behavior. But sadly, Terror Vision performed poorly, even when it came to success. Still a great movie though. Even Fight Club was a flop when it was released, but it's a great movie, isn't it? Anaconda, 1997. Now this is a cult classic and a personal favorite. Anaconda has a star-studded cast featuring Jennifer Lopez, Jon Voight, and Owen Wilson, among others. I'm surprised that the younger generation has no idea about Anaconda. A documentary film crew is traveling through the Amazon rainforest to find and document a long-lost indigenous tribe known as the Shirashamas. The crew is led by director Terry Flores and includes cameraman Danny Rich, production manager Denise Kalberg, Denise's boyfriend, and sound engineer Gary Dixon, narrator Warren Westridge, anthropologist Professor Stephen Kale, and boat skipper Mateo. The journey takes a dangerous turn when they encounter Paul Cerrone, a stranded Paraguayan snake hunter. Cerrone claims to know the whereabouts of the Shirishamas and offers to help the crew. However, it soon becomes clear that Cerrone has ulterior motives. He is obsessed with capturing a giant, legendary green anaconda, and he manipulates the crew into aiding his quest. As the crew ventures deeper into the jungle, they face numerous challenges, including treacherous waters, hostile wildlife, and the ever-present threat of the massive anaconda. The tension escalates when Professor Kale is stung by a wasp and rendered unconscious, allowing Cerrone to take control of the boat. Cerrone's true intentions are revealed as he forces the crew to assist him in capturing the snake. Anaconda was a surprise financial success, spawning several sequels and a spin-off, and I should mention that it made thrice the amount of its budget, so that's massive. Late Phases 2014. This is the movie you should watch if you take a keen interest in unique protagonists. In Late Phases, Ambrose McKinley is a blind Vietnam War veteran who moves into a secluded retirement community called Crescent Bay. He's fiercely independent and somewhat abrasive, traits that quickly put him at odds with his new neighbors. His son, Will, helps him settle in, but their relationship is strained, reflecting years of unresolved tension. On his first night in Crescent Bay, Ambrose hears a commotion next door and discovers his neighbor, Dolores, being brutally mauled by something. His loyal-seeing eye dog, Shadow, tries to protect him but is mortally wounded in the process. The next day, the police dismiss the incident as an animal attack, but Ambrose is convinced that something more sinister is at play. Determined to uncover the truth, Ambrose begins to investigate the mysterious deaths and disappearances in the community. He learns that the incidents coincide with a full moon, leading him to suspect a werewolf is responsible. Ambrose's military training and sharp instincts come into play as he prepares for the next full moon. He buys silver bullets and sets traps around his home, ready to confront the beast. Ambrose's suspicion falls on various residents, including the local priest, Father Roger Smith, and neighbor James Griffin. Ambrose's investigation is complicated by his blindness, but his heightened other senses and determination drive him forward. The climax of the film sees Ambrose facing off against the werewolf in a brutal and suspenseful showdown. Now, I love the character of Ambrose, and it's portrayed by Nick Demisi. He's the heart of the film with his layered performance, showing both the strength of his military past and the vulnerabilities that come with his age and blindness. The supporting cast include Ethan Embry, Lance Guest, and Aaron Cummings add depth to the community and serve as potential suspects. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, 1990. Imagine going to watch one movie and get treated with three. That's how amazing this next movie is. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, adapts the anthology format of the popular TV series into a feature-length horror film. It contains 3 stories tied together by a framing device involving a boy attempting to distract a witch from eating him. Now let's talk about it in detail. Betty, a modern-day witch, has captured a young boy named Timmy. Betty plans to cook Timmy for dinner, but to stall her, Timmy reads her 3 stories from a book she gave him titled Tales from the Dark Side. The first segment, Lot 249, is based on a short story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It's about a vengeful graduate student, Edward Bellingham, who uses an ancient Egyptian mummy to exact revenge on 2 classmates, Susan and Lee, who framed him for theft. Bellingham reanimates the mummy using a mystical scroll, and the monster gruesomely murders his enemies. However, Susan's brother, Andy, discovers Bellingham's plan and destroys the mummy, only to face a final twist when Bellingham resurrects Susan and Lee to exact further revenge. The second segment, The Cat from Hell, is based on a short story by Stephen King. A wealthy old man named Drogon hires a hitman Halston to kill a seemingly indestructible black cat. Drogon believes the cat is avenging the deaths of thousands of cats killed by his pharmaceutical company. Despite Halston's best efforts, the cat ends up killing him by crawling down his throat. The segment ends with Drogon meeting a similar fate. The final segment, Lover's Vow, is inspired by a Japanese folktale. A struggling artist by the name of Preston witnesses a gargoyle murder his friend. The gargoyle spares Preston's life on the condition that he never speaks of what he saw. Preston agrees and soon meets and falls in love with a woman named Carola. They marry and have children, and Preston's life flourishes. However, years later, Preston breaks his vow and tells Carola about the incident. Carola reveals that she is the creature, and she and her children transform into gargoyles, leaving Preston to face the consequences of his broken promise. Marvelous verdict. Putting together this list was a blast. I rediscovered some old favorites. I guess the best kind of horror isn't always the loudest and bloodiest or the most hyped. Sometimes it's the quiet dread, the creeping unease, and the what if that really gets under your skin. What are some of your go-to underrated flicks? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you like the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.